Well, welcome to the follow-up after show, kind of a web extra for our viewers that kind of watch the big show and wanted to hear more from our two special guests. We had a lot of information in the big show, and they have a lot more to say here in the after show. Ali Abazeed, the public health officer of the city of Dearborn, is back with us, and as Peter Sinclair, an environmental activist. So, Ali, we referred in the big show to this op-ed that you wrote in the Free Press a little while ago, and I suggest that people jump online, go to the Free Press, and find it. It's penned by Ali Abazeed. Just Google his name, and it'll come up in terms of climate change. One of the items you had in that article talked about climate change. It was a lot about weather extremes and related to climate change and how it's really going to impact the social fabric. I don't know that I hear that term a lot related to climate change. So why don't you unpack that a little bit for us, what you meant by that?
I think about social fabric a lot, to be honest with you. And what social fabric means to me is what are the values that sort of connect us? And I don't mean connect as sort of an active verb there. I mean it literally. How are we connected? And that's the social fabric. That's the communities in which we live, where we learn, where we work, where we play. We're interacting with one another constantly. And when we think about climate change, it's very easy to think about flooding and erosion, for example. We are, after all, the Great Lakes state, and flooding and erosion are disrupting those precious freshwater systems. But it's really important for people to understand that the consequences of climate extremes, they extend far beyond the natural world as we understand it, far beyond just the environment, and even far beyond the way that we think about health. It generates stress, it generates uncertainty. Climate change does, extreme weather does, and those events, they corrode what I like to call our built environment. How have we sort of zoned ourselves into existence? How do people live in neighborhoods? How are neighborhood squares constructed? How are people interacting with one another, quite literally interacting with one another? And that upheaval due to that extreme weather, due to climate change, it's leading to what research shows are significant changes in the fabric of society. Research is showing that we are reaching what is called social tipping points, which are fast and fundamental changes in human values and behaviors, the nature of relationships, technologies and institutions are changing based on climate change. And so I think about this constantly. I think about the way that people experience stress and uncertainty. I think about the ways in which humans are worried about the next flooding event or the next extreme weather event. How does that take a toll on interpersonal relationships? If you have a flooded basement, guess what you're not doing that night? You're not hanging out with your buddies. If you have, for example, a date next week and your home is destroyed due to a tornado, guess what you're not doing next week? You're not going on that date. Those are some really elementary examples of the ways in which interpersonal relationships are being affected. And I'm interested in exploring the much larger magnitude in which those relationships are shifting.
And this is a conversation about climate change that I don't think I hear enough of. I mean, you're on the front lines of this, Peter. I mean, is this the kind of talking points that we need to start pitching a lot more to get people to kind of wake up?
Climate anxiety is a thing. It is global, and it is affecting young people in ways that we don't fully understand yet. But I think it has a lot to do with a general sense of malaise people under 35 are feeling, that the elders that they look to for leadership are not committed to handing the planet over to them in something approximating the shape that we ourselves received it.
Yeah.
And that is a fundamental injustice, and it is the minimum morality that we can expect from any generation, and we're failing at this moment.
Right, and we're so glad that you brought it up, both of you. Another item on the after show I wanted to get into, Peter, was the misinformation, disinformation out there, and one has to do that the cost of all these climate changes into renewable energy is going to be so expensive, we're not going to be able to afford it.
Well, we're in a position where we can't afford not to deal with climate change. But the good news is, just to give a succinct example, if we look at the state with the highest penetration of clean energy, that would be Iowa, more than 62% wind energy and a rapidly expanding solar on their grid. Their grid is more reliable and cheaper than the Michigan grid. They're paying about 15 cents a kilowatt hour for their electricity. Last time I looked, Michigan's paying 19 cents kilowatt hour. So there is no inherent reason that going to clean energy can't benefit us economically by keeping energy costs low, because we know the cost of wind and sun is not going to change as far as we can see into the future. And so we're no longer going to be held hostage by events beyond our control, whether it's dictators in Russia or autocrats in Saudi Arabia. We're going to be truly able to control our own destiny. And I would remind people that the oil and gas that we depend on, these are global commodities. And some politicians would have us believe if we just drill more, drill more, drill more here in America, somehow that will bring prices down. We are the leading producer of gas, and I think top 3 of oil right now, and have been for quite a while. And yet we're still subject to, when war happened in Ukraine, prices shot out of control. And that's because these are global commodities. Right. And we will always be at the mercy of a global market. So learning to produce energy from energy that is all around us, freely available, we are swimming in it, that is the future, and that's what's going to give us an affordable and really livable future.
So you've been on this mission for a lot of years. It's been your life's work, Peter. So Ali, with you, and maybe we can wrap this part of it, is this the kind of thing now that you've kind of put it out there as a public health official in the city of Dearborn, plus you're a professor at Wayne State in the Department of Public Health. Do you see you making this a little bit more of your mission to heighten the awareness of the people that you kind of serve, to see if we can move the dial a little bit here and get more people to speak in this way?
Yeah, I mean, Peter brings up so many great points. I think what I focus on a lot through public health is public salience. And look, I'm in a field where I think public health, we failed to look inward during the pandemic. I think as a field, public health failed during the pandemic. I think we moved away from some of our roots that are rooted fundamentally in fairness and equality and equity. And we engaged in scientific finger wagging. Look, it's really important to continue contributing to the research and academic and scientific canon. Those are fundamental pillars of American and global society. But the reality is, for a lot of folks, that's not translating. And so what I'm constantly thinking about is, how do we communicate this better? Because the support is on our side. I mean, Peter does a lot of this work through the Yale Climate Connections, but we know that 64% of Americans support transitioning the economy from fossil fuels to clean energy by 2050. We know that the same percentage support public utilities and electric utilities producing 100% of their electricity from renewable energy by 2035. We know nearly 80% of registered voters support generating renewable energy on public land in the US. So the public support is on our side. We need to remember that. It's important to separate the signal from the noise. And what I aim to do, what I hope I'm doing, what I hope to continue to do is build on that public support, is focus on expanding that public support, and then ultimately translating that public support to public policy.
Well, I'll leave it at that. You two are on the same team to move this forward. And again, we have to keep the conversation going to get meaningful change. And I think tonight's conversation did a lot of that, that it's not something that's a million miles away that's going to affect us 100 years from now. It's happening right now. It's affecting us right in our backyard. So thank you for coming in and joining us in the follow-up and the follow-up after show.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
And thank you, the viewer, most importantly, for joining in.